My home has long been both a refuge and a prison for me. All those creaky floorboards that I can identify with my eyes closed, the loose doorknobs and faded wallpaper. It's my whole life, compressed into 120 square feet of an aging building in a quiet Quincy neighborhood. My name is Eugene Kingsley. I am 78 years old, and my life flows with the predictability of an hourglass. Every morning I wake up at 6:30, not because I want to, but because my body no longer understands what a long sleep is. My joints start to ache after 5 hours of immobility, and my bladder, that tyrant of old age, doesn't recognize a nightly truce. The morning routine has been perfected over the years. 15 minutes to coax my body out of bed, then pills, a glass of water, toast with jam and a cup of coffee, which the doctor has forbidden, but without which I cannot imagine my existence. Another little rebellion against inevitability. Today is the 23rd of October, Tuesday. It rained yesterday and my knees warn me that the weather has not yet calmed down. The kitchen window overlooks the backyard. Once a manicured garden, now half feral. Elaine wouldn't have approved. She always said you could judge the soul of its owner by the garden. I guess my soul is overgrown with weeds now too. Elaine passed away 3 years ago. Pancreatic cancer, swift and relentless. 46 years of marriage, and here I am alone in the house we bought when our son was only 5. Austin, my only son, who is now 46. Strangely, I still see him as a boy with perpetually scraped knees and a stubborn look in his eyes. Now he's a solid man, an accountant in a big company. He has been married to Veronica for 15 years. They have no children. First career, then it was too late. Another regret I never say out loud. After breakfast, I go out on the porch to get the newspaper. The neighbor across the street, Mrs. Patterson, is walking her pug. She waves at me. I nod back. Our relationship is limited to these gestures and the occasional conversation about the weather. I don't need much more than that, though. The paper is full of news that doesn't concern me. Politics, economics, celebrity scandals, all of it happens in a parallel universe. My reality is much more prosaic. Utility bills that keep rising, a nagging lower back, and monthly visits to the doctor, where I'm told I'm in good shape for my age. The consolation is dubious. After lunch, I usually watch TV or reread books I know almost by heart. Sometimes I go to the park across the street. There's a bench overlooking a small pond where I can sit for hours, watching the ducks and thinking about everything and nothing at the same time. Today I'm pulling photo albums off the shelf, a rare ritual I allow myself when the loneliness gets too much. Here's our wedding. Me in a rented suit, Elaine in a dress her mother made. We're both so young, so naive. Here's Austin as a newborn, a tiny bundle in the arms of a radiant Elaine. And here he is in his senior year of high school, already aloof, with a strained smile. When exactly did things go wrong between my son and me? I was strict, but weren't all fathers of that generation? I worked 6 days a week to provide for my family, building bridges and buildings all over the state. Not the most prestigious job for an ambitious boy who dreamed of more. "Why are you always so satisfied with little, Dad?" he asked me one day when he was 15. The sound in his voice was not curiosity, but accusation. I didn't find the right answer then. I don't find it now. The phone rarely rings. Usually it's telemarketers or charities. Sometimes Merlin Pratt, my longtime friend and former colleague, calls. We meet once a month over a chessboard at a local coffee shop. He's the only one who still remembers me young. Austin calls at Christmas, Thanksgiving, and my birthday. Our conversations are short and awkward. "What's up, Dad? How's your health?" "No, I'm sorry, I can't make it. I've got a lot of work to do." "Next time, sure." Veronica is even more distant. She's polite, but in 15 years I never felt I knew her. A silent woman with an impenetrable face. An administrator at an insurance company, always impeccably dressed, with perfect hair and a soft smile that never reaches her eyes. When they visit, once a year or less, the house is filled with tension. Austin looks around with barely concealed disapproval, dilapidated cornices, cracked bathroom tiles, old furniture. His gaze says, "Why do you live like you're stuck in the last century?" And I want to answer because, in a way, you are. They never stay overnight, though Austin's room has been untouched since he left for college. I offered to convert it into a guest room, but something stopped me. Maybe the foolish hope that one day he'd want to come back, if only for a little while. In the evenings, I often sit in the rocking chair on the back porch. It overlooks the old apple tree we planted when we moved into this house. It still bears fruit, though the apples have gotten shallower and more sour. And so has my life. Today I noticed that the faucet in the bathroom is leaking again. In the past, I would have fixed it myself, but my fingers are no longer as dexterous and my back refuses to bend at the right angle. I'll have to call a plumber. Another expense. Money's not a problem, at least not yet. My pension is modest, but the house is long paid off, and I've learned to live frugally. I have some savings that I plan to leave to Austin. Not a fortune, of course, but not chump change. Plus a house, real estate in Quincy has always appreciated. I never talk to Austin about inheritance. I don't feel right discussing such things as if I were a commodity with a price tag. But sometimes I catch myself thinking that's how he thinks of me, as an asset that can't be cashed in yet. Maybe I'm being unfair to him. Maybe his aloofness is simply the result of busyness and his own problems that I don't know about. But then why does every visit from him leave me with the feeling that I'm guilty of something? That I haven't lived up to his expectations? As a young man, I built bridges. Ironically, the only bridge I failed to build was a bridge to my own son. At 9 p.m., I take sleeping pills. Another compromise with age. Before bed, I leaf through a book, but the lines are blurred before my eyes. I put it on my bedside table, where Elaine's book used to be. Sometimes I talk to her in the dark, tell her about my day, the little annoyances and the rare joys. In such moments, the loneliness recedes. I can imagine her answers, her quiet laughter or concerned look. "You think too much, Eugene," she would say. "Always have been." As I fall asleep, I often think about what it means to live a good life. I've built buildings that still stand today, loved a woman with all my heart for almost half a century, raised a son. Isn't that enough? But the thought that comes just before I go to sleep is always the same. No one sees the real me. To the neighbors, I'm just an old man with a newspaper on the porch. To the doctors, a collection of symptoms and medical records. To my son, a burden or, at best, a distant figure from the past. And who am I to myself? That's the question I'm still searching for an answer to. Even at 78, tomorrow will be a new day, almost indistinguishable from today. I'll wake up at 6:30, take my pills, drink the forbidden coffee, and maybe I'll find the strength to finally fix that damn faucet. The phone call came on Wednesday afternoon, while I was dozing in my chair to the sound of the television. I didn't immediately realize it was my phone ringing and not part of some dream. My son's name popped up on the screen. Weird. Thanksgiving is still almost a month away. "Dad, it's Austin." "I know, son. I got your number," I coughed, shaking off the drowsiness. "Is something wrong?" "No, nothing's wrong." I could hear the tension in his voice. "Veronica and I just thought we hadn't seen you in a while. We wanted to invite you to dinner this Saturday. Are you free?" I almost laughed. Am I free? My life is one endless free day. "Yes, of course it is. What's the occasion?" "You need an excuse to see your father?" There was a familiar note of irritation in his voice. "No, it's just, unusual, so I'm asking." "We just missed you," Austin said in a tone that sounded like he was reading from a piece of paper. "We'll pick you up around 6 o'clock tonight, okay?" "I can drive myself," I countered. "I can still drive." "You don't have to, Dad. You know that in the dark." He didn't finish the sentence, but I understood. Old people shouldn't drive in the dark. Besides, we could have some wine. All right, I give up. I'll be ready at 6. After the call, I sat for a long time, staring at the faded screen of the phone. Something about that call felt wrong, fake. We'd only seen each other twice in the last year, at Christmas and on my birthday in June. Suddenly, I cared so much. Maybe Austin's in trouble. Need money? But he'd never asked me for financial help, not even when he started out. Pride didn't allow it. Or are he and Veronica having a relationship crisis and they're looking for neutral ground? Regardless, then why invite me over to their place for dinner? By Saturday, I'd gone through a dozen versions, but I hadn't found a satisfactory explanation. Early that morning, I pulled my only decent suit out of the closet. It had been hanging in its case since the last time I'd worn it, for Elaine's funeral. The fabric smelled of mothballs and stale time. I stood in front of the mirror for a long time, looking at my face, the network of wrinkles, the bags under my eyes, the thinning gray hair. Looking at that reflection always gives me a strange feeling, as if someone had replaced the real me with this aging stranger. Inside, I'm still the same 30-year-old man, full of energy and plans. Austin pulled up at 6 sharp. I waited on the porch, holding a bottle of wine I'd bought at the local supermarket. It wasn't much of a gift, but it didn't seem right to come empty-handed. Veronica was sitting in the passenger seat and didn't come out to say hello, just waved through the glass. Austin opened the back door for me. "You look good, Dad," he said, giving me a look. "Suit? You didn't have to dress up like that." "I wanted to fit the occasion," I replied, feeling silly in my formal attire. Austin was wearing jeans and a simple shirt. Veronica, when I finally saw her full length outside the house, was in a plain house dress. No special occasion. Their house is 30 minutes away from mine, in a more upscale neighborhood in Quincy. It's 2 stories high, with a manicured lawn and a large 2-car garage. We hardly spoke during the drive. Austin turned on the radio, and the cabin was filled with contemporary music I didn't recognize. "How are you doing, Eugene?" Veronica asked when we finally sat down at the table. She always addressed me by my first name, never calling me Dad, or at least Mr. Kingsley. "It's business as usual," I replied. Slowly. "How's your health?" Austin intervened, pouring wine. He left mine untouched, preferring it to the cheap stuff I'd brought. "Not bad for my age. My blood pressure's a little high sometimes, but the doctor says it's normal. And how's your, what's her name?" Veronica snapped her fingers, remembering. "That heart problem you mentioned last time?" I frowned. "I don't remember talking about heart problems. I have arrhythmias sometimes, nothing serious." "Oh, right, arrhythmia." She nodded as if she meant it. Over dinner of baked chicken and vegetables, the conversation turned to my house. "Are you still doing okay with the cleaning, Dad?" "Well," Austin asked as he poured himself a second helping. "Maybe I should hire a helper. It's a big house for one person." "I can handle it," I said firmly. "I don't want to spend money on an assistant. Besides, what else am I supposed to do all day long? Have you ever thought—" Veronica started but stopped when she met Austin's gaze. "Have you thought about updating anything in the house? Have you done any renovations lately?" "Why?" I shrugged. "Everything works." "Ow." "But the value of the house could be increased," Austin said casually. "Real estate in your neighborhood is going up in value right now." I looked at my son carefully. "Are you suggesting I sell the house?" "No, no," he answered quickly. "I'm just saying, it's good to have an asset that's going up in value." "It's not an asset, Austin. It's my house. It's my mom's and my house." There was an awkward pause. Veronica got up, started gathering plates. "Dessert? We're having cheesecake." Over dessert, the conversation turned to my finances. Veiled at first, questions about whether I was struggling to pay my bills, whether my property taxes had gone up, then more direct. "Do you still have money in that old savings account?" Austin asked, sipping his coffee. "You know, there are much better options for retirement savings these days." "I have enough," I said. "Sure, no, and I'm too old to risk my money on any new schemes." "It's not risk, Dad." Austin rolled his eyes like he used to do when he was a teenager. "It's prudent money management. I can help you figure it out. I'm a professional after all." "Thanks, but no thanks." At that moment, Austin's cell phone rang. He glanced at the screen and got up quickly. "I'm sorry, I have to take this. It's work," and left the room. Veronica and I were left alone. She smiled her professional receptionist smile, polite and expressionless. "Forgive him, Eugene. He's just worried about you." "He didn't used to worry much," I said. "Times change," she shrugged. "We're all getting older, starting to value family more." Something in her tone made me wary. But before I could answer, Austin returned. His face was a mixture of annoyance and worry. "Is everything all right?" Veronica asked. "Yeah, it's just—" He waved his hand. "The client can't wait until Monday." After dessert, they offered to watch a movie, but I declined, saying I was tired. In fact, I just wanted to leave this house where I felt not like a guest, but like an exhibit under a microscope. During the drive back, Austin stopped twice to answer his cell phone. The second time, I could clearly hear the beginning of the conversation. No, haven't talked to him about it yet. Look, now's not the time. When he got back to the car, he looked annoyed. Problems at work? I asked. Not really, he answered evasively. One project couldn't get going. We spent the rest of the drive in silence. At my house, Austin got out to open the door for me. Thanks for tonight, I said. Dad, Austin suddenly put his hand on my shoulder. You know you can count on us, right? If you need anything, or if it gets hard to do it alone. His face was a mask in the streetlight. Familiar features, but not real. I know, son, I said, but I'm getting by. Veronica and I were talking. He hesitated. Maybe you should think about other options for living. There are excellent complexes for active retirees. All the amenities, medical staff nearby, socializing with your peers. That's it, a retirement home. I'm fine where I am now, I said firmly, in my own home. Of course, Dad, Austin nodded hastily. Just think about it, okay? Weigh the pros and cons. I watched their car drive off down the street and felt a strange mixture of relief and anxiety. Something was happening, something I didn't fully understand. Inside, the house greeted me with its familiar silence. I threw off the formal shoes that chafed my feet and made my way into the living room. There were pictures on the mantelpiece. Elaine, little Austin, the three of us on a picnic in the park. Happy times that now seemed like stills from someone else's movie. I remembered how much Austin had loved it as a child when I tossed him high into the air. He would laugh, throw his head back, and then demand, "More, higher, Daddy!" When did it stop? When did that invisible wall come between us? Maybe as a teenager, when he started embarrassing me in front of his friends. Or in college, when he studied finance and economics, and I couldn't hold a conversation on those topics. Or when he married Veronica, a girl from a wealthy family, and my modest lifestyle was another reminder of the difference between us. I sat in the dark, going over these thoughts until I heard the sound of an incoming message on my phone. It was Austin. Thanks for tonight, Dad. I hope you enjoyed it. Think about what I said about the housing complexes. I didn't bother to respond. What could I say? That I could see right through him? That I understood how uncomfortable he was in my presence? How he wanted to get rid of the burden of an aging father as soon as possible? Elaine always said I'm too delusional. You see pitfalls where there aren't any, she used to say. Maybe I'm exaggerating now, too. Maybe Austin really does care about my well-being. But then why the strange glances with Veronica? Why the secret phone conversations? And why now, after months of silence, such sudden interest in my health, home, and finances? I went to bed with a heavy heart and tossed and turned for a long time, unable to fall asleep without sleeping pills. Austin's face was in front of me, the boy who had once looked at me with adoration, and the man who now looked on with a mixture of impatience and cold calculation. Elaine, I whispered into the darkness. What should I do? What would you do in my place? But the only answer was the silence of the old house, holding memories of better times. Tuesday began as usual. I woke up at 6:30, took my pills, had breakfast of peanut butter toast and forbidden coffee. The day promised to be just like any other, filled with small chores that I stretched to fill the hours. After breakfast, I decided to finally tackle the leaky faucet in the bathroom. The determination came after 3 weeks of putting it off, and I was almost proud of myself. The toolbox was found in the garage, under a layer of dust. Once I could disassemble and reassemble almost any mechanism, but now my knees crunched, my hands shook, and my glasses kept sliding down the tip of my nose. 2 hours later, the faucet was still leaking, and I sat on the edge of the tub, admitting defeat. I'd have to call a plumber. Another surrender to age. When the phone rang, I was glad for the distraction. Checking the screen, I saw my son's name. Second call in a week, a record in recent years. Austin, I answered, wiping my hands with a towel. Is something wrong? No, Dad, it's fine. His voice sounded strangely excited. Listen, I've been thinking about our conversation, about those apartment complexes. I wanted to send you a link to a really good one. Do you check your email? Once in a while, I answered. My old computer was in the corner of the living room, turned on maybe a couple times a month. I'd rather send it to your phone. You know how to open links, right? I wanted to remind him that I wasn't a complete idiot, but I held back. I do, Austin. Simonier mean. Great, I'll send it to you. Soon my phone beeped, announcing an incoming message. I clicked on the notification, but instead of a link, I saw a video file. Before I could say anything, Austin continued. Oh, and one more thing, Dad. I was going through some paperwork. You made a will after Mom died, right? Yeah, I answered cautiously. Why? Just to be on the safe side. Do you remember who it's in? Austin, I was getting impatient. Why are you asking me these questions? Nothing, he answered quickly. It's just, uh, for my own peace of mind. I want to make sure that everything is in order. If suddenly, you know. In case I die, I asked you directly. Dad, there was a fake protest in his voice. I'm just looking out for you. The will is in your name, Austin. It always has been, and always will be, in your name. Good, good, he sounded almost pleased. Okay, I gotta run. Take a look at what I sent and let me know what you think. Bye, Dad. He hung up before I could say goodbye. I stared at the phone with growing suspicion. Something wasn't right here. 2 calls in a week, the sudden interest in the will. I opened the message again and clicked on the video file. After a second of loading, Austin's face appeared. He was in his car, parked somewhere in the lot. Judging by the light, he was filming in the evening. The car was the same one he'd driven to pick me up on Saturday. Honey, Austin began, smiling broadly at the camera, I have great news. I just came from the lawyer. He says that if Dad signs these deeds transferring the house from this day forward, all the property is ours, and we'll put this old man in a nursing home. He laughed, but it wasn't the laugh I remembered from his childhood. This laugh was cold, calculating. Can you believe it? No more trips to Quincy, no more, how are you, Daddy? We'll sell the house. Put the money into that project I told you about, and we can finally afford a vacation in the Maldives. The lawyer said that with his medical history, no one would be surprised if he agreed to a nursing home. At his age, a lot of people aren't in their right mind anymore. Austin laughed again, then his face turned serious. Just don't say anything when we get there on Saturday. I'll gradually bring him up to it. Act concerned. Ask about his health. You know the drill. That's it. I gotta go. Love you. The video ended. I sat there dazed, still holding the phone in front of me. My heart was racing, and there was a strange ringing in my ears. I couldn't believe what I had just seen and heard. That old man is going to be put in a nursing home. Is that what he's saying about his father? About the man who changed his diapers, taught him how to ride a bike, paid for his education? I stood up and started pacing around the room, trying to calm my breathing. Everything was making sense now. The sudden interest in my health, the questions about the house, about the will. They were planning this. They were planning to get rid of me. My first impulse was to call Austin and tell him what I thought, to tell him that I'd seen his disgusting video, that I knew what they were planning, but something stopped me. Maybe my instinct for self-preservation, or maybe the remnants of fatherly love that kept me from believing my son could really do such a thing. I rewound the video and watched it again. There was no mistake. Austin, my only son, saw me as a nuisance that needed to be gotten rid of. With his medical history, I don't have any particular medical history, the usual age-related problems. High blood pressure, occasional arrhythmia, arthritis. Nothing that prevents me from living on my own. Unless they came up with a different medical history to justify putting me in a nursing home. I watched the video again, trying to memorize every detail. Austin wasn't going to ask me to move in. He was talking about some paperwork I had to sign. They were probably going to trick me by slipping me house transfer papers instead of something innocuous. My gaze fell on a shelf of pictures. Austin in his college graduation robe, smiling proudly at the camera. I remembered that day, his mother crying with happiness and me shaking his hand firmly, telling him how proud I was of him. The first in our family to get a college education. And now he's using that education to cheat me out of everything I have. The phone rang again, and I flinched. This time it was Veronica. I hesitated before answering it. Hello? Eugene? Her voice sounded strained. You haven't talked to Austin in the last half hour? Yes, I answered, trying to sound normal. He called. And did he send you anything? So they'd already noticed the mistake. Veronica was obviously trying to find out if I'd seen the video. He said he'd send a link to some housing complex, I answered cautiously. But I hadn't looked at it yet. I was busy fixing a faucet. I heard her distinct exhalation of relief. Oh, okay. It's just that he sent me a message that he might have gotten the recipients mixed up. No big deal. Just work stuff. Working papers. That's what they call it. Tell him I haven't looked at it yet, I said, but I'll definitely look at it later. Okay, I'll tell him. Her voice relaxed noticeably. How's your day going, Eugene? The usual, I answered. Nothing much. After a short conversation, she said goodbye. I put the phone away and sat back in my chair, feeling a strange emptiness inside. How long had they been planning this? Weeks? Months? Years? I began to think back to all of our recent encounters, analyzing their behavior from a new angle. That Christmas dinner, when Veronica had casually asked if the house was too big for me. The day I was born, when Austin wondered if I had health insurance for long-term care. Their inquiries about my friends and social life, probably assessing who might stand up for me, who I might complain to. And there were other bells and whistles. Austin never invited me to his corporate events, even when he got a promotion. Veronica always kept her distance, never called me dad, and those looks between them when I talked about the future, like I didn't have one. I didn't notice how I started to cry. The tears just flowed on their own, not raucous sobs, but quiet drops of bitterness and frustration. How had we gotten to this point? Where had I gone wrong in my parenting? Elaine had always been a buffer between us. She smoothed out the sharp edges, found compromises, made us talk to each other. With her death, that thin bridge had collapsed, and the chasm had only widened. I stood up and walked to the window. It was starting to rain outside, a fine, drizzling, sad rain. Just right for my mood. So what now? Call Austin and tell him everything? Pretend I didn't see anything and wait for their next move? Go to a lawyer? I thought about what would happen if I just asked my son directly. He'd deny everything, of course. He'll say I got it all wrong, that it was a joke, a prank on Veronica. Or maybe he'll say that I've started having problems with my head, which only confirms that I need constant care. No, direct confrontation is not an option. What if we pretend it never happened? Wait until Saturday and see what they do? But would I be able to sit across the table from them, knowing what they were up to? I caught myself thinking that I wished I had consulted Elaine. She was always a better judge of character than I was. She would know exactly what to do. But Elaine isn't here, so it's up to me to decide. And strangely enough, another emotion began to break through the pain and resentment, a cold, calculating rage. If they want to play these games, well, I can play them too. I went to the phone and texted Austin a quick message. Son, thanks for calling. I'll look at the link later. Busy right now. By the way, I've been thinking about the will. Maybe it really should be updated. Talk to you Saturday? As I sent the message, I felt a strange satisfaction. Let him think his plan was working. Let him think I was a helpless old man who could be easily fooled. But I wasn't going to give up without a fight. I wasn't going to let them take over my life and my possessions. If they wanted my home so badly, well, I had until Saturday to decide how to protect myself and what was mine. I ran through my options in my head. Call my old friend Merlin, a former lawyer. Change the will before Saturday? Sell the house myself and move somewhere where they couldn't find me? One thing I knew for sure, I wouldn't let them win. I won't let my only son and his wife treat me like a burden to be gotten rid of. I'm not some helpless old man. I'm a man who built this house with his own hands, raised his son, lived a long and honest life. And if Austin thinks he can just write me off and send me off to some state home to live out my days, he's sorely mistaken. His father wasn't out of his mind yet, and he hadn't given up fighting. I sat down at my computer and turned it on for the first time in weeks. It was time to gather information and make a plan. I had 4 days before their next visit, and I was going to make the most of them. I was up most of the night. My mind was reeling with scraps of video, Austin's phrases, memories of our last dinner. It all added up to a mosaic of betrayal so obvious that I wondered how I hadn't seen the signs before. I greeted the dawn with reddened eyes and a determination to act. After breakfast, I dialed a number I hadn't used in months. Merlin Pratt, my old friend and former colleague, answered after the third ringtone. Eugene? His husky voice sounded surprised. Are you all right? You don't usually call this early. I'm sorry, Merlin, I replied, glancing at my watch. It was only 8 in the morning. I need to talk to you. In person. It's important. There was a pause. Merlin and I had known each other for 40 years, and he knew me well enough to know that I wouldn't bother him without a good reason. Chess and coffee at the Morning Light in an hour, he suggested. Perfect. Thanks, buddy. The Morning Light Cafe has been our traditional meeting place for the past 10 years. A small, cozy establishment, 2 blocks from my house, with worn leather couches and chess tables in the corner. The owner, Bart, knew us by name and always kept a table for us by the window. Merlin was already waiting when I arrived. Despite his 82 years, he looked alert and trim. Gray hair neatly slicked back, thin-rimmed glasses, tweed jacket. Even after retiring 7 years ago, he hadn't given up the habit of dressing like a lawyer. You look lousy, he said instead of greeting me when I sat down across from him. I feel like it, I replied. Bart brought our usual order black coffee for me. Cinnamon latte for Merlin. We waited for him to step away. What's wrong, Eugene? Merlin leaned forward. You haven't called me in this mood since Elaine got sick. I pulled out my phone, opened the video, and held it out to him. Watch this one first. Austin sent it to me yesterday by mistake. Merlin put on his reading glasses and took the phone. I watched his face as he watched. First bewilderment, then shock, then something resembling anger. When he finished, he took off his glasses and rubbed the bridge of his nose. Shit, Eugene, he muttered. Merlin rarely swore, and it showed how shocked he was. Your own son. What are you going to do? That's why I called. I sipped my coffee to hide the trembling in my hands. You were a lawyer. What am I going to do? Merlin tapped his fingers on the table thoughtfully. First, save that video. Back it up. Second, don't release it right away. Let him think you don't know anything. Third, he looked me straight in the eye. You need to change your will. Immediately. Change the will? I repeated. To whom? Anyone but Austin, Merlin said firmly. Are there any other relatives? Or charities you like? I shook my head. I didn't have any other close relatives. Great-nephews I hadn't spoken to in years. Charity had never been my priority. You can leave everything to me, Merlin joked, but his eyes remained serious. Look, Eugene, you need a functioning lawyer. I'm retired, but I can recommend a good one. Sarah Keller, a former colleague of mine. She specializes in cases like this. What kind of cases, I asked. Sons who want to get rid of their fathers? Elder asset protection, Merlin corrected gently. Unfortunately, your case is not unique. I've seen it dozens of times in my practice. It was no consolation, so I'm one of the many old people that my own children want to get rid of. A statistic, not an exception. What else should I do? I asked, feeling lost. Check all the paperwork related to the house and bank accounts. Make sure Austin doesn't have access to them. Maybe even change banks. And, Eugene, Merlin put his hand on mine, don't sign anything, no matter what they bring you. Nothing. We sat in the cafe for another hour. Merlin called Sarah Keller right in front of me and arranged a meeting for the next morning. Then we played a game of chess, though I could barely concentrate. Merlin won in 20 moves. Don't lose heart, old boy, he said as we said goodbye at the door. You're stronger than you think. When I got home, I found 3 missed calls from Austin and a message that said, Dad, call me back. It's important. I didn't call back right away. Instead, I made 2 backups of the video. One sent to my email, the other saved on an old flash drive I found in my desk drawer. The phone rang again in the middle of the afternoon. This time I answered it. Dad, finally, Austin's voice sounded strained. I've been trying to reach you all day. I was at Merlin's playing chess. I answered in as casual a tone as possible. Did something happen? No, it's just... He hesitated. Remember that text I sent you yesterday? Yeah, something about the housing complex, right? I tried to make my voice sound distracted. There might have been another file, Austin said cautiously. A video. I mixed up the recipients and sent you something that was meant for my coworker. A video? I paused as if remembering. Maybe. I haven't watched it yet. Just read the text message. I heard a distinct exhale of relief on the other end. Good, don't open it, okay? Just delete it. It's work stuff. Confidential. Sure, son, I replied. I'll delete it as soon as I get to my phone. It's charging in the other room right now. Thanks, Dad. He sounded almost happy. By the way, Veronica and I were thinking of coming over tonight. Bring some groceries. Sit together. That's it. They want to make sure I really haven't seen the video and maybe check to see if I have any copies. Tonight? I acted surprised. It's unexpected. It's just that we both got off early and we thought, why not come visit you? His voice sounded fake carefree. We could stop by Spring Market, pick up something ready to go. What do you say? I wanted to say no, to say I was busy or not feeling well. But that might have aroused suspicion. All right, come, I agreed. But no frills, I'm a man of simple tastes. I know, Dad, Austin laughed. We'll be there around 7. After we talked, I searched the house thoroughly, trying to imagine where they might look for a phone or copies of videos. I hid the flash drive in a tin box of fishing hooks in the garage, a place Austin would never look. The phone I decided to keep with me all evening. At exactly 7, I heard the sound of a car pulling up. Through the window, I saw Austin and Veronica get out, laden with packages as if they were here for a week, not dinner. Dad! Austin hugged me on the doorstep, a fake cordiality that I used to mistake for sincerity. She not worse. How are you? The same, I answered, stepping aside. Come on in. Veronica kissed me on the cheek, an unusual gesture on her part. She smelled of expensive perfume and pretense. We brought so much stuff, Eugene. She picked up the bags. Where can we put them? In the kitchen, as usual. While Veronica laid out the groceries, Austin looked around as if he were seeing the house for the first time. His gaze slid over shelves and tables, lingering on places where his cell phone might be. Where's your cell phone, Dad? He asked casually. Remind me to delete that video when we're free. In the bedroom on the charger, I lied. The phone was actually in my pants pocket. Don't worry, I'll remember to delete it. Austin nodded, but I noticed him glancing over to Veronica. She shook her head faintly. Not now. Dinner was intense. They brought baked chicken, a salad, and a bottle of good wine. Austin filled my glass to the brim, even though he knew I didn't drink enough. Perhaps he hoped the alcohol would loosen my tongue or make me less cautious. How was your game of chess with Merlin? He asked, pouring me a second serving that I hadn't asked for. The usual, I shrugged. He won. I was having a bad day. Money's von Harry. What were you two talking about? I looked up from my plate. Austin was staring too intently for a casual question. About old times, mostly. Projects we worked on together. Merlin was a lawyer, right? Veronica intervened. You and he worked together? He was a lawyer at the company where I was an engineer, I explained. We became friends during the construction of the Mill River Bridge. A complicated project. Lots of legal nuances. And now he's retired? Veronica continued. 7 years now, I nodded, although he occasionally consults with old clients. Austin and Veronica looked at each other again. I understood their concern. If I showed the video to Merlin, a retired lawyer, it could cause problems for them. Dad, I've been thinking about our conversation about your house. Austin changed the subject, pouring himself some wine. Remember when we said it was too big for you alone? I remember, I took a sip of water. You suggested I move into a nursing home, or, as you called it, a housing complex for active retirees. It was just a suggestion, he said quickly, taking care of your comfort. Of course, I smiled, hoping the smile didn't look too strained. I appreciate your concern, son. After dinner, Veronica volunteered to do the dishes, something she'd never done before. Austin offered to show me some housing options on his laptop. I agreed, even though I knew it was just an excuse so Veronica could tour the house in my absence. We sat down in the living room, and Austin opened up some glossy website with pictures of well-groomed seniors playing golf and sitting in luxurious living rooms. Here, look, he pointed to the screen. 24-hour medical care, all the comforts of home, socializing with peers, and most importantly, no worries about the house, utilities, repairs. It looks expensive, I said. Don't worry about the cost, Austin said quickly. You have a house. You can sell it and... He paused, probably realizing that he was being too frank. I pretended not to notice. And what? Sell the house and move there? Tar, I asked in a neutral tone. Well, that's an option, he tried to sound nonchalant. You'd get a decent amount of money for a house in that neighborhood. You'd have enough to live comfortably, and you'd still have money left over. Left over for what? I asked bluntly. Austin hesitated. Well, whatever you wanted, travel, hobbies, or you could invest. Or you and Veronica could go to the Maldives, I thought, but said out loud. Interesting idea. I'll think about it. At that moment, Veronica called Austin into the kitchen. I heard their muffled voices, but I couldn't make out the words. When they returned, they both looked annoyed. Was something wrong? I asked. No, nothing's wrong, Veronica said with a strained smile. It's just that I can't find the lid to the container for the leftover chicken. I knew she was lying. Probably couldn't find my phone or copies of the video she was looking for. They left around 10, leaving me with bags of groceries that would last me for a week. Strange generosity from people who planned to send me to a nursing home. We'll stop by on Saturday like we agreed, Austin said, hugging me goodbye. Think about what I was showing you. I will, I nodded. By the way, I'll delete that video, don't worry. Thanks, Dad. He looked relieved. Have a good night. I stood on the porch, waving at them, and felt a strange mixture of bitterness and determination. My own son, my own flesh and blood, planning to get rid of me like I was nothing. Back in the house, I pulled out my cell phone and called Merlin. They came by, I said without preamble. They were looking for the video. Did they find it? No. I hid the copies and kept the phone with me. Good for you, Merlin said. Don't forget to meet Sarah tomorrow at 9 o'clock. I'll pick you up. Hanging up the phone, I walked around the house, checking to see if Austin and Veronica had left any bugs or hidden cameras. Paranoid, perhaps, but after today's visit, I couldn't be too careful. Before going to bed, I sat in the rocking chair on the back porch for a long time, looking up at the stars and thinking about Elaine. What would she say when she saw the man our son had become? Would her heart break like mine did? But with the pain came determination. I'll see a lawyer tomorrow. I'll change my will, protect what is rightfully mine, and maybe teach Austin a lesson he'll never forget. Meeting Sarah Keller changed everything. Merlin brought me to her office, a modern glass and concrete building in the business district of Quincy. Inside, it smelled of coffee and paper, and diplomas and certificates hung on the walls in austere frames. Sarah turned out to be a woman in her mid-50s with a short haircut and shrewd brown eyes. She listened to my story without interrupting, watched the video, and made a few notes in her notebook. Mr. Kingsley, she said, folding her hands on the table. Unfortunately, your case is not unique. We call it elder financial abuse, and I've been dealing with cases like this for almost 20 years. So what is your advice? I asked. First, change your will immediately. Second, secure your assets. Third, she paused, think about your future without regard to your son's wishes. We spent 3 hours discussing options. By the end of the meeting, I had a new will with the bulk of my assets going to a local college for scholarships for engineering students from low-income families. A small amount went to Merlin in case I needed an afterlife protector. Austin got nothing. Are you sure? Sarah asked as I signed the document. It's a big step. Absolutely, I answered. He'd made his own choice. But changing the will was only the beginning. On the way home, Merlin suggested an idea that seemed crazy to me at first. What if we sold the house? He said, looking at the road. Right now, before they realize you know about their plan. Sell the house? I even laughed. Merlin, I'm 78 years old. I've lived there for 43 years. Where am I supposed to go? Wherever you want, he answered simply. You're a free man, Eugene. No obligations. No attachments except memories, and memories you carry with you wherever you go. I was silent, digesting his words. We didn't talk the whole way back, but the idea stuck in my head and wouldn't let go. In the evening, I pulled out my photo album and took a long look at the pictures taken in different rooms of our house. Elaine in the kitchen baking an apple pie. Little Austin under the Christmas tree in the living room. Me in the backyard building a birdhouse. How many memories these walls held. But were they all happy ones? And was the house still a home without Elaine? With a son who saw it only as an asset for sale? The decision came suddenly in the middle of the night. I lay sleepless, staring at the ceiling, and suddenly realized the house had long ago ceased to be a refuge. It had become a prison where I was voluntarily serving my pension term, surrounded by the ghosts of the past. The next morning I called Sarah. "I want to sell the house," I said without preamble. "Can you recommend a reliable realtor?" Events moved quickly. The realtor Sarah recommended was an energetic young man named Taylor Gaines. He priced the house higher than I expected. "The neighborhood is booming right now, Mr. Kingsley," he explained, "and your lot is quite large. Families with children are looking for houses like this." The formalities took less than 2 weeks. I hadn't said anything to Austin, hadn't returned his calls, citing ill health. When he offered to come over on Thursday instead of Saturday, I declined, citing a doctor's appointment. All this time, I was slowly packing up my most valuable belongings, giving away unnecessary things to charitable organizations, sorting through photos and documents. The sale papers were signed in Sarah's office. The new owners were a young couple with 2 children. He an engineer like me once, she a teacher. They made plans for renovations, talked about swings for the kids in the yard, beds for vegetables. I listened to them and felt a strange calmness. The house was taking on new life, new memories. With the money from the sale, I did as Sarah had advised. I invested part of it in buying a small apartment in a modern complex on the other side of the city, with security, concierge, and all the amenities. Another part I left in an account for everyday expenses, and the third, the most significant, I put aside for something Elaine and I had always dreamed of, but never had time to realize: a trip around the world. Elaine had always wanted to see Venice and Rome, the pyramids of Egypt, the temples of Thailand, the Great Wall of China. We put it off for later, when we paid off the mortgage, when Austin graduated from college, when I retired, and then it was too late. I decided I was going to make this trip for both of us. I would take her picture with me and tell her everything I saw. I only spent 3 days in my new apartment. I laid out the things I needed, hung a few pictures, bought new curtains. I didn't tell my new address to anyone but Merlin and Sarah, and waited for the inevitable: a call from Austin. He called on Saturday morning, the day he was supposed to come to me with the papers I was supposed to sign. His voice sounded worried. Cell phone rings. "Dad? Where are you? I'm at your house, but there are some strangers there. They say they bought the house, but there's some mistake, isn't there?" "There's no mistake, Austin," I answered calmly. "I sold the house." There was a long pause, then I heard his breath hitch. "What do you mean you sold the house? When? To whom? Why didn't you tell me?" "Why should I have told you?" I asked. "This is my home. Was my home." "Dad, you don't understand." His voice shook with barely contained rage. "This is a big decision. We should have discussed it together. Where did you put the money? Where are you now?" "I'm in a new place. I feel great." "Give me the address," he demanded. "I'll come right over. I've been thinking. Sooner or later, this confrontation was bound to happen. Why not now?" "Write it down." I dictated the address of my new apartment. Austin arrived less than an hour later, alone without Veronica. His face was red with anger, his tie askew, his hair mussed. "What the hell's going on, Dad?" He started on the doorstep. "You sold the house? Without consulting me? Who are these people who put you up to this? That lawyer friend of yours? Do you realize you could have been duped?" I let him into the apartment and closed the door. The spacious living room with panoramic windows, the new furniture, the fresh renovations. It all seemed to make him angrier. "Sit down, Austin," I said firmly. "We need to talk." "What is there to talk about?" He was almost shouting. "You've made a huge mistake. The house was worth so much more. You've been cheated. We must contact a lawyer immediately and cancel the deal." "Sit down," I repeated, raising my voice. He fell silent, surprised by my tone. I rarely raised my voice at him, even when he was a child. "Sit down," I said more calmly. "Otherwise, this conversation would be over before it started." He reluctantly lowered himself into the chair, still seething with anger. I sat down across from him and pulled out my cell phone. "Austin, I know about your plans," I said bluntly. "I saw your video that you accidentally sent me instead of Veronica." His face changed. First bewilderment, then shock, then something akin to shame, quickly replaced by defensive aggression. "What are you talking about?" What video? I silently turned on the tape and turned the screen toward him. Honey, from this day forward, all the property is ours, and we're putting this old man in a nursing home. His own words, his laughter, his plans. Austin watched, and the color gradually drained from his face. When the video ended, he swallowed and tried to pull himself together. Dad, it's not what you think, he began. It was a joke. A stupid joke for Veronica. We would never— Don't lie to me, I interrupted. Don't make it worse. I know everything. Your plans to sell my house, send me to a nursing home, use the money for your projects and vacations in the Maldives. You don't understand, he changed tactics. We were really worried about you. It's hard for you to be alone in such a big house. And retirement housing complexes aren't nursing homes. They're modern, comfortable places where— Austin, I held up my hand, stopping this stream of lies. I've heard enough. I've made up my mind. The house is sold. The money is invested or spent. I've moved here and I'm traveling soon. Alone. Traveling? He looked confused. What trip? Dad, you're 78 years old. So? I shrugged my shoulders. I'm still strong enough to see the world. Something your mother and I have always wanted to do but put off. Because we were too busy raising you, securing your future. Austin stood up and started pacing the room. This is crazy, he mumbled. It's completely insane. You can't just up and leave. What's going to happen to the house? I mean, the money from the sale? What happens to your will? There it is. Finally, the real question. The only one he really cared about. The will has been changed, I said calmly. You're no longer the primary beneficiary. Most of it goes to scholarships for engineering students. What? He turned around. You can't do this. I'm your son. Your family. The family is not planning to send you to a nursing home to take over your estate, I replied. The family is not discussing how to get rid of you. The family doesn't see you as just a purse or an asset to sell. Austin was silent, his face contorted with anger and frustration. He looked like a child whose favorite toy had been taken away. But he wasn't a child. He was a grown man who had made his choice. I've always taken care of you, he said finally. Always checking up on you, calling you. 3 times a year, I clarified. Christmas, Thanksgiving, and my birthday. 5 minutes each. It's not a concern, Austin. It's a formality. What about your grandchildren? He's changed tactics. When Veronica and I have kids, you won't even get to see them. I chuckled. Austin, you're 46. Veronica is 42. You both always said you didn't want kids. Don't use non-existent grandchildren as an argument. He clenched his fists, and for a moment I thought he was going to punch me. But instead he took a deep breath and tried to calm down. Okay, he said finally. I understand that you're upset, hurt, but we can fix this. Get the will back the way it was. Maybe even find you another place to live if you don't like this apartment. You still don't get it. I shook my head. This isn't about the will or the apartment. It's about the trust you broke, about the love you betrayed. I don't want to fix anything. I want to move on. Without you. What do you mean? He looked genuinely puzzled. I mean, I don't want to see you anymore, I said bluntly. Not you, not Veronica. Our relationship is over. Austin looked at me as if he was seeing me for the first time. Maybe he was. Maybe he was seeing me for the first time, not as a source of inheritance, not as a burden, but as a man with his own will and dignity. You can't just cut me out of your life, he finally said. I'm your son. I can, I replied, and I'm doing it. Now I'm going to have to ask you to leave. I have to finish packing. My plane to Rome is the day after tomorrow. He stood there unmoving, looking at me with a lost look. Dad. Goodbye, Austin. I stood up, letting him know the conversation was over. The concierge will show you out. He stared at me for a few more seconds, then turned and walked toward the door. He stopped on the threshold. You're going to regret this, he said without turning around. When you're alone in a foreign country, when you're sick, when you realize that no one needs you, you'll regret it and come back. No, Austin, I answered calmly. I won't, because I've already realized that you don't need me, and that set me free. The door slammed shut behind him, and I was alone in the silence of my new apartment. Strangely, I felt no sadness or regret, only relief and something akin to anticipation. The next day I finished packing and stopped by Merlin's to say goodbye. We played one last game of chess, and I won for the first time in years. That's a good sign, Merlin said, tipping his king. The beginning of a new streak in my life. Thank you, I shook his hand firmly, for everything. Send postcard, he grinned. I want to know that an old friend is enjoying life. Sarah drove me to the airport. On the way, she reminded me of all the documents I might need and gave me some safety tips for traveling. Worried, she asked as we pulled into the terminal. A little, I admitted, but more anticipation. She smiled and helped me unload my suitcases. Good luck, Mr. Kingsley. Enjoy every moment. In the departure lounge, I sat by the window, looking out at the planes taking off and landing. On the seat next to me was a picture of Elaine, the one of her laughing with her head tilted back at a picnic in the park. I picked it up and held it up to my face. We're going to Rome, darling, I whispered, just like you've always wanted. And then Venice, Florence, the Amalfi Coast, and that's just the beginning. I thought she smiled even wider. Maybe it was the way the light was falling, or maybe she really was somewhere close by, rejoicing in my new freedom. When they announced boarding, I stood up, adjusted my jacket, and picked up my carry-on bag. In my 78 years, I was beginning a new chapter of life. Without a toxic son, without the weight of disappointment, without a house that had become a museum of the past, I walked to the gate with an easy gait, feeling with each step that the past was behind me and a new horizon was opening up ahead, full of opportunity, adventure, and most importantly, freedom.